everybody. I'm Cameron.
I'm Zach.
I know everything.
I almost know a little bit.
And this is the
Watching You Watch podcast.
Oh man, Zach, what an episode.
I feel drained.
Emotionally. I would agree. This is we just finished watching episode 8 today, entitled The Pointy End of Season 1 of Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. And man, do we have a lot to unpack here. If you're tuning in for the first time, this is the Watching You Watch podcast. We are currently recapping Game of Thrones, and we're doing this with the theme that I've watched all the show. I've read some of the books, and Zach hasn't.
None of it.
Not a darn thing. He's been working his way through Season 1, so we're just getting Zach's raw reactions to everything as it unfolds here. So yeah, we just watched episode 8, entitled The Pointy End. Mm-hmm. Zach, why don't you give us, not a summary, I guess, high points?
Everyone just dies or is sad or smug. I mean, like, the theme of this episode was just, like, wanton murder, whether it was the people over in, like, the Dothraki, which we finally got to see them loot and kill people, and Khaleesi, like, steps up and is like, no, I don't want you to kill these ladies, keep them. And then the guy's like, but I want to, rape them. That's my ceremonial right.
He's like, this is kind of what I do.
No, this is what we do. She doesn't get it. She's a foreigner. And Drogo's like, listen, you don't talk about boo-boo like that. And yeah, oh my goodness, he is super whipped. It's fantastic. And that was an interesting scene. It's Khaleesi's, it's funny, his justification for her actions is that, like, the fire is growing in her belly from her son. And
yeah,
like,
he's
look at how fierce she is. Like,
he's like, oh, ho, ho,
the entire
my
time,
baby.
yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah, it was like that total, like, oh my goodness, isn't she great? Isn't she great? Isn't she great, guys?
Isn't she awesome? Like, she's carrying my boy, and he's gonna be the stallion that mounts the world, and he's awesome already.
So she can do whatever she wants. Stop complaining. And then he's like, the guy's like, no, and he's like, hey, look, here's your tongue.
I'm gonna rip it out through a hole in your throat.
Yeah, my gosh, what a freaking... Yeah, and, like, the sword couldn't, like, fully pierce his pecs, and only, like, gave him, like, a small flesh wound.
Yes, so not only are the pecs awesome and pexy, they're also sword-proof.
They are also mostly sword-proof. Like, they'll bleed just enough so there's blood in them, but, like, that was all the further the guy could push the sword. He's like, eh.
He literally just, like puts the sword forward. It's just like...
And Drogo's walking into it, and he's just like, yeah, what? What? And he puts down his knives, too, which is like...
Oh, I know. He's like, I'm gonna beat you without my knives, without my sword, and I'm just gonna dance around, and I'm gonna rip out your tongue through a hole in your throat.
Through sheer force of pecs, he annihilated this dude.
Yes.
All right, and that's what happened with them. But over in King's Landing...
Yeah, there's a lot going on in King's Landing.
There is just a culling. All the Starks, like, all their like, people, their hand servants, their... Oh, my goodness. Oh, the Abbey maid probably died, too.
Yeah, the maid lady who was attending to Sansa.
Oh, my gosh. Everything sucks.
I know.
And... Oh my god, they killed Fancy Tony Stark.
Yes, so Arya's dancing master, Syrio Forel, shows up there.
It's not fair.
I mean, to be fair, he does beat a bunch of Lannister guards away with a wooden sword.
Yeah, it just sucks because, like, we talked, like, the whole thing, like, he wouldn't pick up another sword because he is so, like, dedicated to his craft. He wouldn't use, like, one of their, like, big hulking broadswords.
Yes. Or maybe he just needed to teach them a lesson with, a wooden sword.
Yeah, but he couldn't... I don't know. I was just really hoping he would, like, throw the broken sword and the guy's like, and kill him.
I know. His death is a little bit of a mystery to me, but we'll get into that later.
This is dumb. I hate it. And let's see. Arya manages to get away, and she also kills, some wannabe stable boy who's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to abduct you for the queen and get the munch. He's like, no, get away. Oh, my sword's in you. He's like, oh my god, your sword's in me. He's like, peace.
Yep. And then she's like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
And she just runs.
And it's great because no one's found her because she's learned, like, all the shadow cat hiding techniques.
Yeah, it's like all those many hours of chasing cats around the dungeon has paid off for her.
Yeah, it's sort of, like the Karate Kid, except for her it was, like, evading, like, super...
Yes, there's no wax on, wax off here. It's just, grab the
cats
kitty.
Don't die. Oh my gosh. Not today, Death.
Not today.
Let's see. That's her. Sansa is the only one who's trying to be reasonable, mostly due to her Joffrey love, and like
Yep.
the episode sort of culminated in her like getting to like pull off the excuse. Like, my father didn't know what he was talking about when he said you weren't king, and like all the trees and stuff was like due to milk of poppy, and
It's like, oh, my dad was high, so don't pay attention to a word he's saying, and everybody's like, oh, sweet child.
Yeah, the thing of it is she's. I think I've said it before. She's like not stupid, but she's kind of dumb.
Yes.
Which is super sad.
She does say all the right things, all the placating
Exactly.
things, but like it's still just not going to work.
Yeah, especially when her brother is starting a war.
Yes. So tell us about that. Tell us about Rob and his.
Rob and Catelyn are finally like, you know what? Screw it. Get together, everyone. They sent out like all the ravens, and they have like 20,000 swords to them, and I thought it was great. We also have dude who lost 2 fingers, now like Velociraptor hand man, who he won over by having his dog sick him. Which was, I don't know, if only politics were done that way.
Yeah, there's this very tense dinner scene, and he's all like, oh, I'm not going to ride behind in the vanguard, and then his dog runs up and bites him, and then he's like, fine, I will ride in the vanguard.
Can we talk about like how there's like this Deus Ex dog theme in the SOG? And like all of this, like even... like, going back to Jon Snow and the Wall, his dog Ghost knew all about, like, that there's, like, a White Walker-possessed dude.
Yeah.
And I also love that, like, everyone on the Wall, like, looks to Sam to be, like, smart. He's the one who notices that the body hasn't rotted. One. And it's great, because he's, like, got this very quick wit. I like him. But, of course, if he gets into a fight, he's immediately gonna be
he's a goner.
He's done.
Yes. But you're right, the dogs do seem to be somewhat present. I mean, like, if we were back, if you go back to the episode where Bran almost got attacked, like, the dogs are barking in the tower.
Yeah, the dogs are barking in the tower, and also it just, like, came out of nowhere and mauled his attacker and saved Catelyn.
It did do that. And, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think of any other times the dogs have been, like, kind of prophetic so far. Lady didn't seem to know what
Lady
was
like,
her.
basically Jesus to the Stark clan. Otherwise, things would have gone down a lot worse.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, she was killed in place of harsher punishment towards children, which would have led to a lot quicker escalation in combat.
Maybe, but I don't think Robert would have killed Ned's children in front of him.
No, I know, but still, it would have sped things along a lot quicker. And in a different way, actually. In a way, if Lady hadn't died, it may have been better for them, because then the Starks would have just hated the Lannisters to start.
I mean, they kind of already did.
That's true. Whatevs.
Anyway.
Also, Tyrion makes his way back, and he makes some friends with, like, hill people, which is, like, fantastic.
Yes.
I love it. And he takes him to his father, and his father is just, like, condescending the frig out of him. And I love what placates him is the fact that, like, the hill people are like, we're not going to fight for you if the imp doesn't come with us. And he just kind of, like, he was, like, trying to sneak the wine, and he's like, well, balls.
Yes, I love that. You don't even see it on screen. You just see Tywin turn around, and then Tyrion's just like okay, darn it, this sucks. So he's gonna have to fight in war with his barbarian friends.
I just think that it's so funny. Like, he just brings this stuff home to Dad, and it's funny because at first you can tell he's like so smug because his father is just so.
He's like, look,
done.
I'm alive and I have friends, and then his dad's just like, why aren't you dead yet?
He's like, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I always need to disappoint you when I come back alive.
Anything else that you would consider a high point this episode?
Let's see. Well, also important to note that Vera seems to be the only party that goes around. I think it's great that he says that he's the only true person for the realm.
Yeah.
When he goes and talks to Ned, and gives him the water so he just doesn't die in the dungeons.
Yeah. And Ned's like, Varys, like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, someone's got to look after the realm.
Exactly.
And it might as well be me.
And it's true. So it's stayed true to what my predictions about. He is truly the neutral party. He just watches how things move and is just kind of there.
Mm. Well, I guess that was not really a recap, but I mean, there's a lot in this episode.
There's a lot
anyway.
a lot of death, and that hit some of the high points.
Let's dive in here, though. So let's first talk about Syrio Forel's death, Arya's dancing master, and there's something first off to note about this death is that it doesn't occur on screen; it happens off screen.
Yeah, so he could technically be alive.
There's a chance that he could be alive,
but I'd seriously doubt it, seeing all the other garbage that happened this episode.
But my question is, do you have a headcanon for Syrio Forel? Like, if he were alive, like, what you would want to see him doing? Or maybe if he's dead, what his afterlife is like?
All right, well, let's do both, because I definitely have these. I honestly, the thing of it is we have never heard, like, him cry out in pain, and there is a good case for him not being dead by sort of, like, the cries we heard afterwards, because they sort of sounded like the generic,
There did seem
like,
to be
Lannister
several, like,
things.
different cries from, like,
Yeah,
different
exactly,
people.
and that's the thing, there were several different cries, which...
So at the very least, he brought another Lannister down with
Oh
him.
my goodness, my headcanon is he probably killed the guy, but, you know, there's that one guy with sword stirring behind him. I feel like, you know, it was another one of those, oh, look, I stabbed a guy from behind, you know, like Ned with his leg. One of those sort of, like,
One of those things.
I don't know, I feel like one of those things where he would just, like, have the sword and, like, turn around to the guy and, like, throw it, like, hit the sword into his face and just be like, heh heh.
I win.
Yeah, I don't know.
The first sword of Bravos wins.
Yeah, I don't know. Afterlife for him, I mean, interesting. The thing is, we know nothing of him outside of his, like, dancing and swordplay. I feel like
Yes.
he would live, like, it would be, like, a sort of peaceful thing, just, like, especially since he seems to have, like, the Spanish sort of theme to him. I feel like it would just be somewhere, like, beautiful and open.
And tropical?
And tropical, but at, like, sort of like a, I don't even know how to describe, just like just a small sort of town with, like, beautiful greenery and stuff, and he would probably, I am assuming he has, like, one love, like, one true love, and he'd be with her, and it would
He
be
gets
great.
up in the morning and he, like,
I
gazes
feel
at the
like
water.
that is, like, his past, like, I feel like he seems like the kind of person that had a lover before and she died very young, and he's just, like, never been with anyone else.
Yes.
And I feel like he would actually
Well,
kind of happy to go.
He also
in that
refers to
respect.
himself as the first sword of Bravos, too. So
Yeah.
it makes it, I don't know, I mean, if he's just, you know, full of hot air.
Yeah, I know, that's the thing.
or-
I don't know if, like, everyone talks himself stuff up from that thing, but he is legitimately good and knows what he was doing, like, all the time.
Yes.
I mean, obviously he was fighting Arya, who knew nothing, but I don't know.
I'm just saying, if
He
that's
seemed
a
like
title...
such a wise and smart character.
Right.
that there is a great chance he could be alive, but I'm not holding out for it. I want it to be something I'd be pleasantly surprised to see
Okay,
later.
so you're going to remain not hopeful about it.
Yeah,
so
but
that
be
when
really
it does
excited.
happen, you'll get really happy and really
Yeah,
excited.
yeah. I'm not going to be, like, super hopeful about it. Like, right now, I'm pretty sure he probably died. And what's even worse is if he didn't die in that room, it was one of those things where he probably went and, like, couldn't get out, or, like, had to fight a few more people, and it was just something seriously against him, because he's such a method person that he wouldn't have, you know, gotten a new sword, nor the unfortunate thing is, like, to training, he wouldn't have brought his real sword, so he would have been fighting, like, with his half-broken sword, because, you know, I don't know, it just seems like his style.
I think it's funny, Zach, how you've moved, like, from, like, to, like, you've moved to there, which is, like, realism, from way back in episode 1 when you're like, I hope the dogs don't die, and, like, and now that, you know,
But
we've
they're
gotten
not
this
dying.
far.
He was, like, my replacement,
Yeah,
like,
but
side character.
Well, like, one of them died, and one of them's missing in the woods somewhere. and...
I hope she's killing Lannisters. I hope she's killing all the Lannisters. Every last single. That's what I hope happens in the battle. She just comes from behind and, like, bites Tywin in the neck, and, like, just does, like, pause to her eyes and then pause to his eyes as he dies, and then, like, goes back into the forest. But of course that won't happen.
Let's move on to Varys here a little bit.
Okay.
When we first met Varys, you know, way back in a couple episodes, it wasn't quite clear, like, who on that small council you could trust. And I don't even know, like, even now if that's so clear. And yet Varys seems very definitely on the side of Eddard Stark, even though he isn't, like, going to, like, great lengths to help Eddard Stark.
I don't feel like he's on his side. I feel like he's the neutral party. He does enough to make sure that all of the players are still on the board as long as they should be. Mm-hmm. He still has some sort of agenda for Ed, and he can't die until then. The realm has some sort of need for him.
So, okay, my question is, what do you think Varys' game is? Like, where do you think his endgame lies?
This is what's interesting. I don't know. I think that he just believes that Ned Stark in, like, either his dying moments or in, like, the last bits of his life will do something profound. Something that would, like, spread across, like, Westeros and maybe, you know, give credence to the war between them. I feel like he honestly thinks that, like, Ned dying could, like, start a war that overthrows the Lannisters and maybe brings, like, some balance to the powers that they have.
So you think he's playing like, oh, I'm pro Lannister right now, so that the Lannisters kill Ned, start a war, and then the Starks win the war and bring balance to the kingdom.
Not necessarily the Starks, but just that both all places are laid low, because after a war, everyone bands together. And if you're looking at a neutral standpoint, that could be one of the best things to do. It's almost like a reset button.
That's, like, incredibly, like, shrewd.
Well, and that's sort of been his style so far.
It's true.
He's played all the different parts. He's like, okay, I'll send people to murder Khaleesi. Okay, I'll do this. He does people's stuff, but it's interesting, because we still don't necessarily know his game.
We really don't.
Which is ridiculous.
And, you know, we're going to have to keep watching to see where it goes.
Exactly.
But I think the way that whole scene plays out with Ned and Varys in the jail cell is just so very interesting. You know, it's like this moment of, like, clarity for Ned about how, like, wrong he was to how things were actually going there. And Varys is the one that tells him it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just incredibly, like, whoa, you know. It's like, it's an eye-opening moment, I feel like, in the series as on the whole.
Oh, yeah.
So on the note, though, with where things seem to be going with this seemingly imminent war, what are your thoughts about that?
Okay, my thoughts about this is that the Starks are going to lose, but not everyone's going to die in the war. It's going to be one of those kind of things. And I feel like it's honestly going to come down to, like, hill people, like, guerrilla tactics. I feel like they're going to run a very, you know, the honorable war, where they're going to just straight up fight Tywin, but he's not going to play fair. He's never played fair.
It doesn't seem so.
And he's going to do something to them, and they are going to get, unfortunately, like, beaten or pushed back to a point where, you know, trying to push south will not be possible for them.
What about what Rickon, the youngest Stark boy, what about what he says? When
my gosh!
Brandon's like, don't worry, Rickon. Like Mom and Rob, they're gonna come back with Dad, and everything's gonna be okay. And then Rickon's like, no, they won't. No, they're not coming back.
That was probably one of the biggest things that influences how I think this battle is going to go, because the little kid sense of, like, what adults are feeling like things are is, like, ridiculously uncannily true. So unfortunately I'm going with, like, the 6-year-old's opinion.
So you think Rob's chances of winning are low?
Unfortunately, you want him to come out, but it comes down, if it's like a war, the Lannisters literally win in all fronts. They win in men, they win in resources, and they win in, like, the sheer amount of contacts they have. Sure, the Starks will they will fight well. Like, it will not be an easy fight for anyone, but
right.
I still feel Lannisters
if you remember
out.
A while back during that scene, several episodes ago, in which Cersei is telling Joffrey about, like, you know, what are you gonna do if you rule, and then, like, I would kill these rebellious lords and tell them to follow me. And then she's like, no, you just killed all their men, and they're not gonna bow to you. And then she, like, basically tells him, like, the North can't be taken. So
that's true. But I don't know. The thing of it is in the way that Joffrey's saying, it's like that they go out and try and kill everyone. Everyone's coming to the south, which puts them more at an advantage. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. It's tough. It is really tough to say. I need to see episode 9, like, immediately.
Well, we'll have to hold off on that for a little bit here, Zach. We're going to have to leave you in some sense of suspense. Which brings me to my next point of, since we can't jump right into the next episode, we're going to have to give you a chance to make some more predictions here. And, I'm not going to go through, like, a whole list of characters, but I think there's some key characters in this episode that it's just very not clear, maybe where they're headed or what they're going to do once they encounter this new set of circumstances that is introduced by this episode. Namely, the first one being Sansa. So what challenges do you think Sansa has ahead for her?
Oh my gosh, her Poppy's not going to do as she says, and she's just going to have to, she's going to get to the point where she's, like, backed herself into a corner where she has to, like, lick boots and stuff to, like, keep her standing there, because there's no way she's getting out. She is stuck. She is stuck in, like, deep Lannister territory. And I feel like she's going to end up, like, either by necessity or due to her sort of, like, love-struckness, like, going to Lannister's side.
Okay. So she basically thinks she's going to drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I think she's going to drink the Kool-Aid.
Like, one way or another.
Yeah, I don't think she's going to like it either way, but I think it's going to have to happen, whether due to necessity or due to the fact that she still fancies Joffrey. Why the hell?
I know. It's almost like irrational.
It just hurts.
That even now, she's just like, but I love Joffrey, and I don't want to screw this up.
Just why?
So let's talk about Joffrey too, since we just landed on him. He's just been installed as king. Well, technically, last episode was his first episode as king.
Yeah.
But this is like the first episode where we kind of see him sitting on the throne and actually ruling. So what do you think Joffrey's leadership as a king is going to be like?
It's going to be what we have already seen so far and nothing different. Either it's going to be his mother's good plans or it's going to be his flights of fancy, which his mother can't stop.
Right.
It's literally going to be that combination, and it's going to be a matter of whether Joffrey in his like fits of just, well, I want this to happen, is going to like ruin everything Cersei is trying to set up.
Do you
he
think
is such
that,
a puppet king.
Do you think that Cersei is going to realize like what she's brought, basically?
Well, yeah, like the monster she's created.
Yeah.
I think she already sort of knows, but I don't think she really gets, because due to her sort of like motherness, she doesn't quite get the extent to which Joffrey can just screw things up, and she can't do anything.
Right. Okay.
She'll have to start playing a game almost like she did with Robert, but she does have a little bit more say over her boy, especially since he's not of age.
Right. So let's shift a little bit and go across the narrow sea. We got introduced to a new character over there, who is this woman that is kind of referred to as a witch there by one of Khal Drogo's men. Her name is Miri Mazdor, and I'm just curious where you think she's headed in all of this. Give me a prediction for her.
Every time that Khaleesi has gotten someone with her, they have rolled with her, and they have only like done better as characters, like literally anyone. So I feel like she's going to become another pretty important character. I don't necessarily know where she's going to go, but she's definitely going to be alive, and she's definitely going to be treated better than a slave.
Do you think that she's going to be like another one of these like Team Daenerys people that are going to be like, you know, like gung-ho for her, like Daenerys and her handmaidens and Jorah and all of them?
No. I feel like, especially since she's sort of medical, she'll sort of do what she needs to do, but I feel like she may be like a counterpoint voice of reason.
I see.
I think she'll kind of play like the opposite of Jorah, but still, you know, like more thankful to Daenerys, but not like worshipping her like most everyone else does.
What about the fact that she's being referred to as a witch? What do you make of that?
Well, it's kind of hard to say due to how like generally the Dothraki like talk to things and people, and I mean like, you know, like everything is horse. Like if it is a transportation into some type of horse, whether it be wooden horse or
so it's like hard to tell if this is just like Dothraki euphemism or if there's some actual credence to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard to tell. I mean, there definitely is magic and stuff, but it's just weird. And it's also kind of funny how they refer to everyone else. I guess everyone else that is not them are sheep people.
Well, those people were like actually like shepherds.
Okay.
So that's why they were referring to them as sheep people.
Fair enough.
So yeah.
I feel maybe she even like, no, she didn't have the same kind of stuff that Catelyn had, like the voodoo stuff.
No, she didn't. But you do raise a good point about how you've already started seeing some disparity in like the religious scape of Westeros, because you have Bran at the Godswood.
Yeah, I like that. With drugged out Frodo Baggins.
And she's like, hey, like I believe in the old gods too, but they're not down there in the south, and that's where your brother's going, and they're going in the wrong direction.
Which I think that's great. Oh yeah, and I also love how she's like so like adamant. Like half the time she's like very conversational, but whenever she's talking about what's coming from the north, she's like, seriously, all the swords, everyone should be heading north because stuff is gonna go so bad.
Yes,
and it's like the most scary foreshadowing.
It is, and then tempered that with a very naked Hodor.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh Hodor.
I just love how Bran is like, just like, Hodor, go find your clothes. Like,
and Hodor's like, Hodor.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, I'd like to hear your predictions for Daenerys' son. He's already been referred to as the stallion who mounts the world, but what do you think that actually means in practice? What do you think Daenerys' son is actually going to mean for this world?
Like he really could be just like a super conqueror, someone who's just like groomed through battle and all those things and made to like be almost more worthy of taking the Iron Throne. But of course, it depends on how long it takes Dothraki to get over there, because Drogo is talking more in the time frame that, you know, I'm gonna take it so that my son can sit on it, not so that he can like rule straight away.
Well, do you think that he's gonna take more after like Drogo's like brutishness or like Daenerys's cunning?
Ooh, that's
or do you think he's gonna be the perfect marriage of both?
Well, the thing with it is that's what's gonna happen. That's just kind of like the nurture that people get, which is interesting. I don't know. Well, part of it is I feel like he may have to go more Drogo, because I feel like Drogo is going to be very much like, once he gets his son, not like Khaleesi will be less, but like the son will be more.
Right.
One of those kind of things. He will like have to roll with daddy, regardless of whether he wants to be with mommy more or not.
Right. There is a little bit of that dichotomy there.
You can kind of tell. I mean, there's definitely that.
Yeah.
And he has certain expectations of his son, so his son will have to perform to his expectation.
It's very interesting, though, how, like, they instantly, all the Dothraki, though, rally around this idea that, like, Daenerys is carrying, like, a chosen one inside of her. It's very interesting how that all comes together.
Yeah. And I also like how the more they go, the more she gets, like, clothes, and now her clothes this episode were super, like, actually dragon-y, because they're, like, scaly and stuff.
Well, there was kind of, like, a woven grass thing, I think is what it was, which is a very Dothraki sort of thing. Like, they either wear
very
like
Dothraki.
horse leather or like boiled horse leather.
Yeah,
or,
but
like,
I love
grass.
how they took the time to make hers look like dragon stuff. Like, they've totally caught onto the whole like dragon thing. They got dragon fever.
They do. Well, let's move on to our weekly wrap-up questions.
Okay.
Obviously, a lot going on this episode.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people having reversals of fate. A lot of people launching into new directions. So let's jump right in with best plan, worst plan. And we have to make it very clear moving forward, because I feel like a lot of what happens in this episode is a lot of people declaring their intentions as things
We'll see how they go.
forward.
Okay.
So who made the best plan moving forward?
boy.
Who made the worst plan moving forward?
I already know who the worst plan is.
Okay.
And that is Sansa's plan to get her father to pledge fealty, because that goes against his honor, and she's just going to see him there. And this may honestly bring more credence to her moving to Lannister's side, because she'll see her father as someone who's in treason and not really get to hear the whole thing.
I think it's funny, too, how they're like, Joffrey's like, all right, Sansa, you just have to make sure that your dad swears fealty to me. And she's like, yeah, he will. And then they play this ominous, like, burn.
Yeah, and like
afterwards.
and you can tell that everyone else in the room was like,
not gonna happen.
"Aw, oh you," and Sansa's just like, "But he will," and everyone's like, "Yeah," and then they like all pat her head in unison.
Yeah. Well, who do you think has best plan? There's a lot of people from a lot of different factions who have plans moving forward this episode, whether it be, Daenerys' plan to induct Mirri Maz-Dor into the group, or whether it's Robb's plan to lead a war against the Lannisters, or Tywin's calculations against him. There's a lot of plans going on.
Well, I won't give this one, but best plan is to burn all the people that come to the wall.
Yeah, but that's a given.
That's cheating.
Everyone's just like, they're zombies, burn them.
Yeah, because they don't have guns to give headshots.
Yes.
But you know what? I love Wildcard Tyrion, and I feel like his play, while it seems so dumb, is actually going to become
like
so important.
collecting
Collecting the hill people to live, but I feel like that's going to become like one of those things where it becomes like a very deciding factor. Like, I feel like his sort of thing is going to actually work out really well for him and really in the favor of his father. And I think, like, even though it's going to work, his father's going to hate it, which is a total win for Tyrion.
It is. Like anything that sticks it to daddy for Tyrion is like a win.
And also him winning as him, it's like a double win. So that's why I feel Tyrion's plan has like great potential.
Well, let's move on to Stark of the Week, and this is a good question, I feel like, because I feel like this is the first time in a very long time that we've actually seen all the Starks in an episode.
Yeah, because
for a couple episodes there, like, it was just like, Ned and like Arya and Sansa, or it was just Catelyn or just Jon Snow. So now we've gotten to see all the Starks in action again. Who gets Stark of the Week this week?
I'm giving it to Robert, because this is the first time we've really seen him step up.
So Robb, because he's collected he's like
he's
bannermen,
doing it. Like, he's really doing it, and he's like starting to lead his house.
Yes.
And even though he is definitely green and probably going to get his butt whooped, it was good to see, because up until now he's pretty much all been like sort of like talk and like little spouts of rage. But now we actually got to see him like, I don't know, just like step up.
He's really manning up.
Yeah.
But I think it's funny, like that scene where his mom shows up at the war camp for the first time, and then Catelyn's just like you realize like you doing what you have done has basically made this whole thing like only have one of two outcomes. Either you're going to win and we all live, or you're going to lose and all of us, your dad, your sisters, you, me, we're all gonna die.
But another important thing to mention is that when she first started talking to him, she made it sound like what he was doing was a bad idea, but he stuck with it, and then she was basically like, yes, you are making the right choice. I like how she phrased that to sort of gauge where he was.
It's weird that we didn't have this like clarity a while back ago, but it falls so in line with what Cersei said last episode about when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die, and they get it like right there.
And that's what's great about it, because Rob gets that too. And you know, he's not liking it, and I love how he had the little aside to Theon Greyjoy. It's like, you know, I must be afraid because I'm shaking. He's like, well, you'd be dumb if you weren't.
Yes. Well, okay. With that we have to also raise the question of playing the game this week. We saw a lot of, I think, maybe the outcomes of how people were playing the game this episode, but the game is still afoot, and I want to know, based upon how well the people have played the game, who you would give the crown to this week.
I mean, it sucks, but I keep on giving it to Cersei, because like the more it goes, the more it's just like, well, crap, the Councilmembers are on her side. Old Coot Maestro man's like, you know, screaming like, treason, blarg, boop, and he's like getting all the people like to his banner. And honestly, like for Lannisters, this is great because they're finding who's more loyal to him and who is not. Like, you know, Knight Barristerista is leaving. She
basically like expels
one of her
Selmy.
One of the like her greatest resources, which is funny because they just wanted to retire him, and he's like, nah, man.
He's like, I take my vows for life and I take them seriously, and then she's like, but you got my husband killed.
That's weird. That's just like a weird move on the Lannister part. That's one of the things that I don't necessarily
I don't know,
agree
maybe
with
that's a collected Lannister move as much as it's a Cersei and Joffrey move.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, I mean, like Cersei's plan is she's just doing it, and everything's going real freaking well, and I don't know, she's taking advantage of things as they come and just manipulating people beautifully. Poor Sansa.
Yes.
And I don't know. I feel like she's wanted this conflict in it, and she's getting it. She's getting all she wants.
She right now definitely does seem to be in that position.
Yeah, and especially with like the whole like culling of the Stark house. Yeah, she won that.
Yeah, she did get that. And it's kind of funny, like Varys in that scene with Ned in the prison, he's like, what came over you to play the way you did? Like, that was a phenomenally stupid thing. And he's like, well, it was the stupidity of mercy. And he's like, oh, yes, well, it's your mercy that got you in trouble. Your mercy killed the king. Your mercy killed your men. Mm-hmm. Your mercy is probably going to kill you.
And your kids.
And your kids. So, you know, what's your mercy worth?
He gave him a drink, and he also gave him, like, a cold, hard pill to swallow with it.
Right. Well, and with that, we might need to move on to the question, since death seems so imminent for Ned. I mean, Varys says, you must know you're a dead man, and Ned doesn't really even say anything.
Yeah.
But with that, we need to address best death, worst death this episode.
What do we got? Well, worst death is definitely getting your tongue ripped out through your stinking
What a
throat.
way to go. What a way to go.
Yeah, that stinks. Best death. We had a lot of...
There was a lot of death.
There's a lot of death, but it's hard to, like, quantify best.
What about, like,
well,
let's see. I mean, I personally, but I would say my favorite death this episode is Arya stabbing the stable boy. I feel the thing is we don't even necessarily know if he's dead. He just got stabbed. Yeah, but
most likely dead.
I mean, like the implications for it is just so staggering. Like Arya doesn't even know what she's doing, and then it's like she like stabs him with a like basically a toy sword.
Yeah,
and then she realizes like, oh no, like I did something, and she doesn't even have time to compute, and then she's off like running again.
Let's see, but...
That's a great death thematically speaking.
Yes, I know what you mean by that. That definitely was, like, if we're talking thematically, that was one of my favorites. But I'd try and quantify best and worst by, oh, geez, that sucked, or oh, that wouldn't have been the most terrible.
Yes, but I don't think anybody goes.
Can we
pleasantly.
count like off-scene deaths?
Yeah, well, like whose? Sirio's?
Obviously, Abby Lady, and we're not sure about Siri, but Abby Lady is 100% dead.
The Septa goes very like she takes it with grace. Like she walks up to those soldiers, and that's the last we see of her.
I feel like that's honestly the best for me because it's one of those things where like she totally accepted it. She knew it was going to happen, and due to that, she probably like got a killing blow, not like an oh god I'm wounding, I'm gonna have to bleed out.
Yeah, she left with some dignity.
Yeah. So that's why she probably gets best because there's no way she was definitely making herself a shield, and like if the Cetum went out, it would have basically like moved. No, head chop off.
Right, and she died in a way that paved the way for Sansa.
And honestly, and Sansa would not be where she was if she had not been there because those guards were right there, and she would have been so dead.
Well, on the note of all this death, I need to ask, because there's so much death this episode, how hopeful are you feeling moving forward? I mean, there's a lot of death.
For
there's
who?
A lot. Well, just in general, like how much hope has this episode left you with? On a scale of 1 to 10.
4.5.
4.5, man. I think that's an all-time low now for you.
That's my lowest, and it dropped me by like 3 points.
So you don't feel very good about the Rob's chances moving forward?
No, I do not.
Or
I want to, but I'm not getting my hopes up.
Or Daenerys's plans moving forward?
Well, yeah, but I don't know.
Maybe that's just what averages it out, so it isn't like, like a 2
not
or
like
something.
terrible and like already got away. I mean, we're not like down to the like negatives yet. So, I don't know. Not very hopeful just because I'm trying to err myself on the side of not getting too hopeful and then just like, becoming an emotional like mess. Like at the end of episode 10, I'll just like
Zach,
lay there and weep.
This is so funny. I'm really just thinking about this in contrast to like way back when with you when we first started it, and you're all just like, ooh, puppies, and now you're just really just like.
Well, I really do want them to live, but
yes, but I mean,
but now that we have the Deus Ex dog rule, I'm pretty sure they're okay.
Oh boy. Well, Zach, it's been fun watching you watch this episode. I look forward to seeing your reactions next episode.
Oh my god.
Knowing what's coming ahead.
This is a semi-season finale thing.
Yeah, and we only have 2 more episodes left of season 1.
Oh my god.
And it's gonna be a fun ride. So if you have been following along with us and have been paying attention to Zach watch his way through this, I hope you've been having a lot of fun. I've been having a lot of fun. Zach's been having a lot of fun, even though he's been dreading it a little bit. But if you have any questions for Zach that are in this sort of leading fashion, feel free to send them our way. We are on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Useful NPCs. Mm-hmm. We're also on Twitter at Useful NPCs. And we have a Tumblr. You can look us up.
We do a little bit of that.
So you can connect with us in those ways. Just send a question your way. We're looking right now for a lot of questions about season 2.
Definitely.
Since we're headed in that direction ultimately.
Mm-hmm. I want to also wrap up ones for season 1. We're getting to that point where we could use some. And also, if you ever want to ask about my headcanon, there's a lot more than what I say.
Yes.
And it is just as ridiculous as you think.
I think Zach's headcanon for Game of Thrones should be just an entirely separate podcast because he just has lots of thoughts about this. Lots of feelings.
I'm going to make fan fiction, and it's going to be fantastic. There's going to be Super Saiyan dog people and the best names ever.
Yes.
And there's going to be, like, knights that make espressos and a literal character that is a venereal disease that walks around. It's going to be fantastic.
Oh, man. If you want to connect with us, feel free to do so. We would like it. I've had, like I said, a lot of fun with this. I hope you have too. Make sure to tune in next week when we are on the penultimate episode of season 1. So, thanks for watching.
Thank you so much.
And we'll catch you next time.
See you around the bend.
Bye.